There is certainly a reason why we find ourselves here in the middle of April and we still have no idea what the actual Conference USA schedule is going to look like, or if we know for sure if what was released by the Sun Belt is actually fully recognized, or if it's something that will need to be tweaked, because the next team that I have here on my spring first look series does so happen to be the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs, who been in some legal conversations just in terms of what the heck are they going to be in? Are they going to be in the Sun Belt? Are they going to be in the Conference USA? I've given my thoughts on this particular issue in the past, but I look at this Louisiana Tech team, and the team itself really does fascinate me going into this season as they do enter in potentially in a brand new conference, but coming in with some momentum, given Sonny Comby has gotten this program better, like year in and year out, and now coming in with an opportunity to even level up further, being in an overall better conference and what the CUSA trends to be as of right now. So, very excited to talk about the Louisiana Tech Bulldogs in this one. I hope you guys are as well. Need you guys to do a couple of things for me real fast. I need you to go ahead and hit that like button, as well as hit that subscribe button as well. If you do happen to be brand new to the channel, a lot of work that goes into doing these first looks where I look at each program from a 50,000 feet perspective. So, doing that like button thing, hitting that subscribe button if you're brand new and you love the content, that really does mean the world to me, right? If you can do a couple of those things for me real fast. But let's go ahead and get into this conversation. One more interesting conversations in major college football because if you go to FBS schedules, footballschedules.com, you will see Louisiana Tech's not only full CUSA schedule, but you'll see their full Sun Belt schedule as well. Both of those things are listed on the website right now. It's really interesting monstrosities. So it's like, oh man, if they could win like 15 games, could they actually, make a run at it? Just it's a really quirky stuff, right? Which normally I don't like to take the FV schedules, like screenshots. But man, I had to like pull it up for you guys because this is just genuinely funny to look at on the website. But in seriousness, I do think that this is going to be a Sun Belt team in the fall because we are talking about Louisiana Tech. They've only acknowledged the Sun Belt schedule, which I think is really important in terms of where their head is at now, whether it's they have to settle out of court to make that happen, to send some buyout money over to the CUSA office in order to, officially release them. That's that's a whole different conversation that I don't want to get into, but this is an interesting team on the field too. It's not just the legal stuff, right? Because normally Sonny Comby, Louisiana Tech, the brass and leadership of there has been pretty patient with him because the first 3 years of him on the job, they only won 11 games with a 5-8 record to show for it. So was a little bit of a gamble to let him continue to be the head football coach of your program, knowing that he hasn't. Yes, he led you to a bowl game, but the reason why Louisiana Tech made it to a bowl game a couple of years ago was because there was so many opt-outs that the 5-7 teams, Louisiana Tech, it was just the easiest among those teams to get to the bowl game because it was looking for an opponent for Army for the it was a bowl game happening in Shreveport, and Louisiana Tech is right in that neck of the woods, right? So it just made a lot of sense for them to take on this endeavor. But now in going into this year, you feel a lot better about Sonny Colby going forward because last year I think Louisiana Tech leadership was rewarded by the fact that they did end up being patient instead of firing him after the end of that third season, in spite of not really producing any notable results because you saw Louisiana Tech this time around, almost they doubled their win count from his first 2 years on the job. Ended up finishing 8-5, and They were also competitive against LSU before the LSU Tigers, using that insane talent advantage and the home field advantage as well. LSU was able to pull away, but Louisiana Tech, it was a competitive ball game for them. And not only that, there was also a couple of other games in there that they really should have won, but they ended up losing. You know, when it's Western Kentucky or losing on the road at the very last moment against Delaware, who was a newcomer. So they ended up finishing 5-3 in conference play, but there was certainly some space to work through where they absolutely could have been playing for the CUSA championship game last year. And for most of the year, it was actually, one of the higher power rated teams in my personal power ratings. And of course, they finished strong with a nice win against Coastal Carolina in Shreveport, winning that Independence Bowl, which is a nice way to cap things off. So they finished the year with a 3-game winning streak. And now you get into 2026, and they bring a couple of all conference players coming back, making this transition to the Sun Belt, whether it's Eli Finley, who I think is the most notable of the two guys. He was a second team All CUSA player last year, and he's back with this Louisiana Tech squad. Also, keep an eye out for Dedrick Laudelis, who is a return specialist for this Bulldogs football team, but he was a third team All CUSA player in doing so. So the special teams could be okay in spite of the fact that they did lose their all conference punter to John Hoyt Chance. He heads to TCU. Certainly not the only player to go to TCU from this program, as Jacob Fields, the safety, also ends up leaving after a free interception and 90 tackles season as well. But there definitely is some concerns. If anything, definitely worry about what that safety room is going to look like. Not only losing Jacob Fields, but Michael Richard as well is another name that gives you pause in terms of trying to replace his production. He had 3 interceptions as well and transfers over to Michigan State. So you worry about that safety room. Who's going to replace the production as well for Malachi Mason, who transfers to Kansas State as a linebacker? He had 14 and a half TFLs last year, so he was someone that was constantly living in the backfield and really just struck fear in the hearts of various teams that they went up against. So it's just who's going to step up in light of Malachi Mason no longer on the team. And then besides the secondary room being a little bit questionable, I do worry about where are they going to generate a rushing offense. Not that I think that they're going to be bad in the trenches necessarily, but they did end up losing their 2 top running backs. Clay Feverin goes to Rutgers and after a 900-yard and 8 touchdown season. Omari Wiggins was a little bit of a surprise. He ends up transferring down to McNeese, and he was a nice contributor for this Louisiana Tech football team. Ended up with 529 total yards of offense. So it was a little bit of a surprise. Don't know if it was because of an academic reason or if he was just straight kickoff of the team. My impression that neither happened, but for those of you that are a little bit closer to the Louisiana Tech football program, definitely let me know what you guys think down in the comments about what's going on with the Amari Wiggins situation. But he contributed quite a bit. And speaking of the FCS transfer transactions, I am also excited about MJ Moultrie II, who transfers from Hampton after a 2 interception and 60 tackle year. So partially replacing some of that production lost in the safety room, but still a little bit of a question mark there. You would hope that Moultrie II is able to slot in as a starter, but then your other starter, whether it's trying to replace it's the Jacob Fields replacement or the Michael Richard replacement, you're hoping that someone is able to step up internally there, and that's what you're counting on. But Sonny Comey does have this program trending in the right direction, which is why I did almost have them in the top 100. They do come in ranked 106 for me coming into this year. But let's go ahead and get into what I think this Sun Belt team can do this upcoming year in their first year in the Sun Belt. So I do see a bowl team here in Louisiana Tech. I think they can get back to a bowl game Don't know if I think they're going to get to that 8-5 record from last year. That's certainly not what I have them as a baseline, although I think there is a scenario if everything goes their way. I do think there's a path for them to surpass that 8-5 mark, and possibly get to double digit wins depending on what they ended up doing in the bowl game. But there's a few games in there that are certainly I'm not expecting to win. They have LSU on the road once again. They do also have Baylor on the road too, and I think those two teams are both just too talented for Louisiana Tech at this time. Still probably say about a year away to being able to maybe compete against some of these P4s. And then even the Troy game. The Troy game is on the road. And that Troy team game James Madison, who put up a 30 bomb on Oregon in the college football playoff before they were knocked out. Troy was able to give them a four-quarter game. So that's a really good football team going into this year. So asking Louisiana Tech to go on the road to beat those guys is a little bit of a stretch to ask for. There's certainly some safe wins in there. Obviously, Northwestern State. Northwestern State is one of the worst FCS programs in college football. So if Louisiana Tech drops that one, that's going to be quite the surprise for me. Then Southern Miss. I'm just simply not high on Southern Miss. I'm not high on Blake Anderson at this time. So I do think that this is a safe win as well. But you still got to gut out four more wins. So where those four wins are going to come from? I do like their chances with Louisiana. I do like the Raging Cajuns. I think they're going to be a really good football team. But at home and Louisiana Tech retaining some pieces as well, I do think the Bulldogs are able to pull that one off. Also, very high on the idea of them beating ULM. The reason why I don't have that as a safe win is at least it's happening in Monroe. It is not happening in Shreveport. If this was a home game for the Bulldogs, this would be a safe win for me. But even as a borderline toss up, which is on the very edge of being a toss up and a safe win in spite of this being on the road, I do like Louisiana Tech winning that one. Alongside Old Dominion, their offense is going to look different. I think that offense takes a step back for the Monarchs. So I do like Louisiana Tech being there. And it's kind of a similar feeling with the Arkansas State game as well. So I still think this is roughly the same caliber of football team as what we saw last year. But with that being said, because of the fact that they're in not only a tougher conference, but they are going to have the toughest strength of schedule in the Sun Belt, at least as of how I'm projecting things here in the springtime. So similar caliber of team, but because of that strength of schedule, they'll take a little bit of a step back from a scheduling standpoint. I'd still have them going as a bowl team. It's that 6-6 record that I have as a baseline and getting another bowl invitation. And then 2027 maybe being that, time that you circle on the calendar as, hey, maybe we can actually do some things here. Particularly in the West Division, because the West Division is a little bit weaker than it is in the East, but in spite of that, still the toughest schedule in this conference going into this year. But that's what I'm reading on for Louisiana Tech, who comes in as my 106th best team in college football. But I'm curious to hear what you guys think down below. Am I too high or too low on Louisiana Tech? Definitely let me know down in the comments section. If you've been enjoying this content as well, I would really appreciate it if you went ahead, hit that like button, as well as hit that subscribe button as well. If you do have to be brand new, this is Jake from College Football Red Zone signing off, but hope you guys are all out there having a good one. Take care, everybody.